Standby studio, roll the open, cue the talent.
Just over 1 in 4 women in the United States will experience some form of intimate partner abuse in their lifetime. How's that for a start, David? Melissa was preparing to speak at a fundraising dinner for the YWCA Women's Shelter, and she had asked me to coach her. I said, Melissa, what do you want your audience to do after they hear you speak? I want them to write checks with lots of zeros. Melissa, as your coach, I don't think they're going to write checks with lots of zeros if all you do is quote statistics at them. You have got to tell your story. Me? Tell my story? I don't think I can. When I looked at this strong, resilient woman sitting across from me in my living room, she reminded me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But at the thought of telling her story, she just deflated. Now, I knew Melissa had survived an abusive relationship, had escaped an abusive relationship. But she did not understand the power of her story. Fellow Toastmasters, do you know the power of yours? Melissa was getting agitated with me now. She said, well, who am I to think that my story could make a difference to someone else? Well, who are you not to think that? You made a plan. You escaped. Your story could inspire someone else to take action, but only if you can be vulnerable enough to tell it. What do you know about vulnerability? Ouch. So I told her my story. In the spring of 2001, I was diagnosed with major clinical depression. I had left a job where I felt like a failure. I was not working. I was not supporting my family. I remember saying to myself, David, who are you? You have failed as an engineer and as a husband and a father. What value do you offer anyone? That's the shame I was feeling as I sat at home alone on my couch one day. The house was empty and still except for a slight breeze coming in through the window. And in the serenity of that moment, I asked the universe, what should I do? Have you ever asked the universe that question? Has it ever answered you? That day it answered me, just as clearly as if someone had been standing behind that couch saying 3 words to me. Tell your story. Not be an engineer, not even get a job, just tell your story. What does that mean? That's a question I would have to answer for myself. And it took a while. Several years into my recovery, I finally found the courage to tell my Toastmasters Club the story of my struggle with depression. And then the strangest thing happened. In my vulnerability, others found strength and inspiration. A friend found the courage to tell her story of her struggle. And after she did, others found the courage to tell their stories, and the ripples just flowed outward. And now one of those ripples had reached Melissa. I said to her, you see this couch? This is where I was sitting the day I heard those 3 words. I've never before told anyone that part of the story because it just felt too vulnerable to go back to that time in my life. She said, well, why did you? I wanted you to see that I could survive not only living it, but also reliving it. And so can you. Will you help me? 3 weeks later, I watched as Melissa stood in front of over 100 people at that fundraising dinner. I've spoken at dinners before. They're noisy. You got knives and forks scraping plates and coffee being stirred. Not that night. That room was completely silent, except for the sound of Melissa's story. I thought the face of abuse was my cousin's face, with heavy makeup covering her bruises. I'm here speaking to you about this because I am the face of abuse. Melissa's story was so powerful that day because she allowed herself to be vulnerable in telling it. And I felt it all the way down to my gut. And that audience felt it all the way down to their checkbooks. And they wrote checks with lots of zeros.
Wow. Cool.
Now, did I help Melissa? No more than she helped me. I thought my value as a coach, like my value as an engineer, came from having lots of answers. Until she taught me the most important question. What do you know about being vulnerable? Well, I know this. It isn't easy. Being vulnerable can make you uncomfortable because you're not just retelling some episode from your life, you're reliving it. But happy or sad, your story can have power if you can be vulnerable enough to tell it. To be vulnerable is to be powerful. Fellow Toastmasters, look around this room. We can send out ripples all over the world if we're willing to dig deep enough. To be vulnerable is to be powerful. Claim your power. Tell your story.
Not bad.
Thank you. Not magnificent, but not bad. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you
thank
stop
you,
this?
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. As we move along in our regular traditional
stop.
organization of our meeting, on the bill next is our table topic person, and we'll follow that with the evaluation of Jane's speech, and then we'll have some time to talk to David about his experience going to the World Championship. So, help me welcome our table topic master today, Papa T. Papa T. Father of 4 daughters. There he is.
Well, I thought about what I was going to ask on these questions and tie it in with the word proud and pride. I thought, well, I'm just going to ask one question to everybody so they have a chance to think about it, but that's not what we normally do in table topics. So, you've just retired as an educator. How have your past students made you proud, Everett?
Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters. And Joan, I don't believe your name. Well, I think that the true answer to the question is, how can you feel magnificent about your career if you don't have any memories that continue on? So I guess the way that my past students have made me proud is they remember who I am in a positive way. I would like to be able to tell you exactly how many of my former students are on my Facebook, who invite me to their weddings, who send me announcements to the births of their children. And recently, I got a little older and had a birthday, and I'll bet I heard from over 100 of them. One of my favorite, though not the favorite perhaps, was Tanner Bleskin. And some of you may remember him because he was an all-star receiver for Bozeman. And he said, Mr. Hall, the best teacher ever. From somebody who is a highly successful young man. And I heard from others as well. So the important thing here isn't that I help them learn facts at all. The important thing I think they remember of me is that I made them feel special, that I made them feel important, that I made them feel cared for. And that's the message that I get back. And so it's a wonderful feeling. Just Saturday, as I was walking through the day after I returned, through the farmer's market, one of the former students introduced me to her boyfriend, who had the same name as her brother, by the way, and I thought, geez, her brother sure changed a lot. And she introduced me to her boyfriend and said, this is Mr. Hall, the best teacher that anybody could ever have. Cool. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. That's all, yeah, that's awful nice. So these kids continue to make me feel good, and that's why I continue to reach out and congratulate them when they do well.
That was a magnificent response. What are a few of the things that your children have achieved that made you proud, Karen?
Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, Joan. Wow, there's so many things my children have done that make me proud. I think the best thing they've done is they've made me proud of myself, that I was the mother I always wanted to be, that I was able to take these 3 individuals and raise them in a way that they grew up to be people that I'm proud of, that I brag about, that just do so much for their own community and give back. And they have value, they have ethics, they have morals. And I think if each one of us can just pass a little bit of that on to someone else, what a chain reaction that causes in the world. And them going to school, Ty, to be an engineer. I mean, here's this little boy that came out of this mother who knew little math. I don't understand it to this day. And he goes on to be a straight A student in engineering and becomes a great engineer, a petroleum engineer that's earning all this great money and living a good life. And it makes me proud to know that the ethics he had from the beginning have helped him through the end. And everything they do make me proud. Ty, Travis, having my 3 grandchildren and giving me this beautiful granddaughter. I couldn't be prouder than I think you all know how I feel about my children and my grandchildren, and I'm proud to be their mother. I'm proud of this man who's their father. He's the one that gave them their real ethic values, and it's just grown. And like I said, if all of us could just pass a little bit of that on to someone else, the world would be magnificent.
Thank you, Karen. I'm sorry you struggled with that question.
But she did it magnificently.
What job or career in your life made you proud that you worked there, Craig? You're still a paid member until Sunday.
Wow. You mean resignation cannot be retroactive and generate funds? Oh, my. Hard to have a magnificent answer to that. What job made me proud to be there? I think more than be proud to be there, I think it's unfortunately, too often in hindsight, very grateful for the opportunities that I was given that were, in a very objective manner, were not necessarily earned or necessarily because of any capabilities that I had. I was very fortunate to be the right place at the right time. They talk about real estate, location, location, location. Well, that kind of hit me up and made things happen far beyond what I expected to happen for me. It was very good to be able to contribute to the Air National Guard and to the Air Force. And probably the most challenging part of that, and one where I needed more vulnerability for sure, was when I got into a command position and found out that my internal expectations of how I would do did not match up with reality. And I'm very, very vulnerable about some of the damage that I did to some people. I did help some people, but it's one of those deals where you don't get to go back 30 years and have a redo, unfortunately, when maybe you've learned a little bit more from opening up and getting help from people when you needed it. So, not a magnificent answer, but next time I will make sure that I retroactively remove my money from the organization.
I assigned some of the, excuse me, questions to people before I knew they had extra duties today, but I'm going to ask this one. Are you proud of your accomplishments of being a Toastmaster, Jane?
Hello, Toastmasters and most honored guests that's a Toastmaster also. Yes, I am. I have learned so much from being in Toastmasters, and maybe just the first day I walked in and didn't know what all these words were. What's a grammarian? I couldn't even say it. And what's a wag? What's all this stuff? And then I just took the time to start learning. And then I left and came back, as you do know. And I thought, well, I'm going to challenge myself because Toastmasters gives me that uplifting when I come to it, where when I went to work some days, it was like, oh my God, I have to go back to work and it's going to be a pain in my behind. And yet Toastmaster gave me an uplift. And then when I was unemployed, I had Mr. Rich say, get your butt out of bed and get to Speakeasy in the morning. You don't need to be doing nothing. Get to there. I said, yeah, but Speakeasy is one of those clubs that you got to do everything just perfect. If you don't do it just perfect, you get yelled at. And I said, I don't think I want to go there very badly. And he goes, just come. I said, okay. So I snuck in the door and sat in the back and hoped nobody noticed. And I realized that Speakeasy is really a golden, magnificent organization or a club that we are holding everyone back from coming and seeing. How we get these people out there to come to our club and appreciate the people that we have here and the experience that we have. It's just a great organization. Yes, I went into being area governor and the division governor and also did a little bit with the trio. But that just expanded my adventures with them to meet more people because the people are what makes the club. And if you get to meet the people, it's magnificent. So Toastmasters, yes, it's been one of the greatest adventures I could say I've ever been on. Whether or not when I get to Lake Havasu I'll have that same adventure, I'll go sit in their club again and sit in the back for a little bit. But they kind of know I'm already a DTM, so I'm had.
Question. Tell us about the pride you have in this community or any other community that you lived in, Randy.
Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. Yeah. Pride in the community. I'm not sure that I have pride in Great Falls. I mean, Great Falls has a lot of positive stuff going for it, but as far as the leadership goes, I think we've really been lacking over the years, and probably I should do something about it by running for city commission. But if I do, then you'll read about my divorce in the paper. And if you want to know why, just look at what's happening to Mr. Kavanaugh. So, but Great Falls is a great community, and it has a lot of potential, a lot of potential. And the potential, from my perspective, originates at the river. The development of River's Edge Trail, the saving of the bridge, the putting up of the statues. I'm not sure I'm excited about the development on the West Bank, but luckily the trail was through there first, because I could really see that becoming commercialized. There is a section of land out by Craig that's owned by the state of Montana, and the city has been warned by me that we need to protect a corridor along the river there for public use. And whether they'll pay attention or not, but I will constantly remind them in some magnificent way that they need to do that. The state of Montana is aware that I have my eye on what they're doing there. And so but the river is the origination of what will make Great Falls magnificent. And next, number 2, is the parks. Realize Great Falls has only number 2 for city parks per square mile to Portland. And that was done by Paris Gibson on purpose. And I think that really reflects our Montana tradition of we like lots of elbow room. You know, when I go to the park, I don't necessarily want to see Rich Briner and his dogs at the park. But I want him to have a park that him and his dogs can go to and enjoy. And those should probably be on opposite ends of the community. So that's what makes Great Falls magnificent, the river and the parks.
Thank you.